My name's Chanda Cooper, and I also work with the Conservation Department. So Nancy works with the Conservation Commission. I primarily staff an organization called the Richland Soil and Water Conservation District. Our mission is very similar to the Commission's. We promote the conservation of natural resources for the benefit of the citizens. We are on Facebook and Twitter, and we have our web address up here, so if you are on any of those platforms, please look us up. We've got lots of information about current activities. First of all, has anybody heard of soil and water conservation districts before? A couple folks. Excellent, I know you guys have. So conservation districts are political subdivisions of state government. They are, in our state, governed by boards of 5 commissioners. 3 of those commissioners are elected in the general election. 2 are appointed by the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources Board. There are conservation districts in every state across the country, and they're organized a little differently from place to place. Here, they conform to county boundaries, so we have 46 counties, we have 46 conservation districts. We're designed to be very responsive to local needs and local issues, so our programs vary substantially, but we do have a state organization and a national organization that provides some structure and consistency between what we offer. Thank you. We were formed out of the environmental disaster in the 30s called the Dust Bowl, which most of you should be familiar with. Of course, there was a lot of farming taking place in the prairies of the Midwest. Especially a lot of the prairie grasses were being plowed up and planted into wheat. That expanded during World War I, and then in 1930, when the drought began, the wheat died. There was nothing growing on that soil to hold it in place, and then the winds just blew it away in these big dust storms. So you can see that top right picture, and also the lower left, just huge clouds of dust. It buried millions of acres of fertile land. It displaced hundreds of thousands of people. They lost their farms, their livelihoods. Many of them moved west. You've heard of the Okies, moved out to California. Livestock died. People developed dust pneumonia. Hundreds of people died from that. So it was a disaster. And the federal government said, we need to do something to work with farmers in particular to help them conserve their soil resources. And that's really what gave birth to the conservation districts. So in 1933, they created a federal agency called the Soil Erosion Service, and then in 1935, the Soil Conservation Act turned that into the Soil Conservation Service. That organization today is NRCS, Natural Resources Conservation Service. It's under the Department of Agriculture. You may have heard of them before. This is their logo. That wasn't enough. So we had a federal organization that was supposed to work with farmers and help them farm better, but they needed more local leadership, more people in local communities promoting this conservation message. So President Roosevelt asked the states to create conservation districts to serve as that local body, connecting the federal resources with the local landowners. That's where we began. We have a close relationship with the federal government, with our state government, and also with the county, as you can see. These are your commissioners. We have 5 commissioners, 1 associate commissioner. Our programs are really divided into 2 areas, programs for adults and then programs for youth and teachers. So I'll talk about each of those areas just a bit. One of our big programs right now goes back to our roots, so we're still promoting soil health practices for farmers. On the left, you can see the conventional way of farming is to till up the land and then plant your crop. This soil is dead, it's unhealthy. And we promote practices like cover cropping and reducing tillage as a way to increase soil health and make it better for the environment. So the land on the left is very susceptible to erosion. The land on the right, the bottom picture shows a cover crop. That's something that you plant in between your cash crops to help feed the soil. And then the top picture is no-till farming when you're leaving the residue on the soil. So by using those good practices, cover cropping and reduced tillage, you reduce erosion, reduce runoff. That contributes to having cleaner water. Farmers are able to grow their crops using fewer chemicals because you have more nutrients in the soil. They have less weed pressure, so they have to spray fewer herbicides. The soils are cooler. The crops have better drought tolerance. There's more diversity in general because you're adding those cover crop plants to your crop rotation. And many farmers are also able to see increased profits because they have reduced inputs. They're reducing their fertilizers and their chemicals. I have a quick demonstration to show just especially to get the point across about the erosion. So This cup on the left, I'm going to put a clod of soil from a field that has been conventionally farmed. It's been plowed up. It does not have cover crops on it. On the right, we'll have a clod of soil that came from a forest. It has not been plowed up. It just has the tree cover on it, so it's pretty healthy. And here's the forest. Here's the bare soil. And so this is called a slake test, and we do this often with programs for farmers. And you can take a field that's been cover cropped and a field that hasn't, and you can see a huge difference. So obviously we've got a lot more erosion happening here. The water quality is poor. We've got all the sediment in it. And you can see in that bottom picture how the soil just washed away when the water came across. So that's exactly what's happening in the tub. When you have roots, when you have living things in the soil, it holds the soil together. There are things in this called biotic glues that are sticking those soil particles together, and you can just imagine the roots just holding it in place. So this is good, this is what we're shooting for, and to do that, plant cover crops and reduce tillage as much as possible. This also applies to home gardens, potted plants. Don't till it unless you absolutely have to. Next. This is just another slide showing our soil health practices. So we're working closely with some researchers at USC and some farmers in Lower Richland to get some hard data about how these practices affect their profits, their crop growth, and their soil health. And there we go, they're all our partners. We've had several field days as a part of this. If you're interested in more info, talk with me after. It's one of my favorite projects. We rent a no-till drill to help incentivize farmers to try this out. So it's a low-cost rental. If you have enough property to merit a piece of equipment that's this large, talk to us. Another big project is focusing on water quality in the 25 Mile Creek watershed. This is northeast Columbia, so the creek starts just in the corner of Fairfield County, comes down through Blythewood, down to Sand Hill, and then a long 2-notch road all the way through Lugoff and to the Wateree River. 25 Mile Creek watershed, the water has high levels of bacteria, so fecal bacteria, and also an impaired macroinvertebrate community. That means that the bugs and the critters that you expect to find in a healthy stream are not there for whatever reason. And we have several possible causes for these problems. First of all, agriculture. There are a few row crop farms in the area, but there are several livestock operations, cattle and horses, as well as a few other types of livestock. All those animals are producing manure. Manure has bacteria in it, also has nutrients which contribute to water quality problems in the watershed. But then there's also wildlife. So wildlife also produce feces, and those also have bacteria and nutrients. We have urban runoff, so just imagine the gunk that comes off parking lots and from subdivisions and everywhere. Failing septic tanks and sanitary sewer overflows are also contributing to the bacteria levels because human fecal matter hazardous as well. In the 25 Mile Creek watershed, we provide financial assistance to livestock owners to help reduce problems caused by livestock manure. So if a farmer needs to put up a fence to keep the cows out of the creek, we can pay 70% on that. So if you know somebody in the watershed that has livestock, please send them our way. We'd love to work with them to help pay for these practices to protect water quality. It also improves herd health. Next up. How many of you are interested in food? Yeah, it's supper time, isn't it? So another one of our big program areas is local food and local food systems. We have a project called Organic Richland, which promotes local, sustainable, and organic agriculture. Through that program, we do workshops for producers, for growers, about sustainable farming practices like efficient irrigation and integrated pest management and organic certification. We also provide some consumer education through this project. And we work with several partners on food system coordination. I think my next slide is about that. So there's a working group in our area called the Midlands Local Food Collaborative. It consists of government agencies, nonprofit organizations, a few individual businesses, but all these folks are interested in food system issues coming from a lot of different angles. So some of us are interested in the farmer side and the sustainable agriculture side. Some of us are interested in food access issues and food deserts. Some of us are very excited about the farm-to-table aspect. So we all get together once a month and try to coordinate programs that would help strengthen our local food movement. So if you're interested in this one, there's another website, midlandslocalfood.org, and I did pass out a brochure about this group in your packet. All right, there are adult programs. Now for the youth. In the end, we'll conserve only what we love what we understand, and we understand what we've been taught. So we're trying to help introduce natural resources and environmental science to students so that they'll be aware of, first of all, what's there, why they should care about it, and what problems face it, and then they'll take action to help protect it in the future. We do lots of class presentations, so if you know somebody who teaches, or if you have a scout group or 4-H group or anything, I do come out and make presentations about forestry, wildlife, water quality, a variety of topics. We sponsor contests and awards. We have a spring poster contest and then fall Arbor Day contest every year. We offer awards for teachers and principals who are doing great conservation projects at schools. And we provide mini grants to schools for projects like school gardening, composting, rain barrels, water quality monitoring, anything that gets students doing conservation or environmental science. We can help provide some funding for those projects. We support a lot of school projects through the Green Step School program. This is a partnership project with Sunoco Recycling and Keep the Midlands Beautiful and DHEC, but it basically matches schools up with a mentor. So if they want to start a school garden, we'll find somebody to mentor them and help walk them through the process, help troubleshoot their project as they go along. So we do a lot of that in our office. Envirothon is a program for high school students. It's a quiz bowl competition all about environmental science. So if you know high school students, let them know there are lots of scholarship opportunities through this program. It's a lot of fun. We sponsor, I think we're going to have 3 teams competing from Richland County this year. So there's a state Envirothon competition, and then the state winner goes on to the international competition, which is held in a different area every year. So we love to have high schoolers participate in this. It's a great way for them to be introduced to environmental science. Professional development opportunities, we work a lot with teachers and other environmental educators to help them first learn more about the environmental science so that they're comfortable then teaching it, but also we give them tools and lessons and activities that they can then take into the classroom ready to go. So it really makes teaching natural resources, conservation, environmental science less intimidating and pretty easy. So we offer a lot of workshops for teachers, and there are several great curricula available that teachers can use in the classroom. And that's it. And here's my contact info. And I'll get you a card.